Hey everybody, Shoebox Legends here. Thanks for joining me today for another installment of Slab and Gab here on the channel, where we take a look at some graded cards from my sports card collection and gab about them a little bit. This is going to be a 1964 Topps themed episode today. As you can tell by the backdrop, got a nice Ernie Banks and a beautiful Yogi Berra there. Those are both in higher grades, at least for my vintage collection, in PSA 7s. Bought those many years ago, as you can tell by the old flips, when a 7 was way more reasonable than it is today. I don't really buy that grade any longer, and 60s Hall of Famers for the most part. And the two cards that we're going to look at today that are actually new to my YouTube channel, I've had them for a while as well, but I've never shown them here, are both a much lower grade than those PSA 7s, and I think you'll see that. They're fairly graded. These are not super mint condition cards, but I think they look beautiful anyway, and they fit right in the collection with these 7s. The first of which is a really neat one. This is the second year Pete Rose, the All-Star rookie from 1964 Topps. I adore this card. I am one of the many collectors, I hear this all the time, but who find this to be a much nicer looking card than his 63 rookie, where he shares the card with 3 other floating heads. I understand that's an iconic and very expensive card, but I've always loved the aesthetics of the 64 card. As far as the look of the card, I don't see how you could prefer the 63 to the 64. This is just beautiful. You have the batting cage in the background, smiling young Pete, the all-time hit king. You have that great 1960s All-Star rookie trophy, which is just fantastic. And so really his first solo Topps card. And the story behind this one, I picked this up at auction years ago. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago. Was not planning on buying the card or seeking it out, but for some reason, you know, for a grade of a lowly PSA 2, this card really spoke to me. And it was available, you know, very cheaply with a few minutes to go when I stumbled upon it. I think the reason this scored a 2, it's a little bit off center, not too bad actually, a little bit left to right. But centering is at least decent. This upper left corner has some peeling on it. And then there is a little bit of a surface crease in the card right here through the batting cage, the red of the batting cage. So I think those are the main reasons. You got a little bit of a bunted corner down here in the lower right as well. So this is not a beautiful condition card at all, but it looks great. Like, I mean, I'm holding this about, you know, 6 to 8 inches from this high def camera. And to me, it looks like it belongs with the Ernie Banks or the Yogi Berra that are much higher grades in the background. I probably would not fork out the amount of money that it would cost to bring this card home in a PSA 7. And thanks to the lowly grade of 2, combined with the fact that I picked this up years back, I paid only between $20 and $25 for this second year Pete Rose card. And so that's why I'm willing to make an exception, sort of cast a wider net. And, you know, don't necessarily have to conform to any grade rules when browsing for vintage. So here's the back. It's, you know, off center, left to right, which would be top to bottom on the front, but it's all contained. There's border, you know, orange border all the way around the card. There's no paper loss. You can read all the stats and the write-up and everything. 64 Topps are not my favorite card backs to begin with. It's all about the beautiful fronts. So yeah, for a PSA 2, I stand by this card. It makes me, you know, feel like I've got good representation of Pete Rose in my vintage collection. He's someone that I enjoy very much, and I do feel that it's kind of a shame. I understand that he kind of made his own bed to an extent, and that he hasn't helped with his, you know, reputation of not exactly being a people person over the last few decades. But I do think it's a shame that he's likely going to pass without having been inducted into the Hall of Fame, despite being the greatest contact hitter in the history of the sport. I just think it's a shame for him and for baseball and for fans. But you know what? That's an argument for another day. For now, let's just enjoy that 64 Rose, probably my single favorite Pete Rose card in my entire collection. And then to go along with it, I have a PSA 2 counterpart. Rose was one of the best hitters of the 1960s. I have here arguably the best pitcher, the great Sandy Koufax. As I said, in a matching PSA 2 to the Pete Rose. In my opinion, this card actually looks even a little bit better than the Rose. The centering is a degree better. It's actually pretty nice. It's not perfect, but it's nice on centering. And the corners all look a little bit stronger here than the Rose. No creases that I can see. No real obvious weak spots to this card. It's a very aesthetically pleasing PSA 2. I think this cost me a few bucks more than the Rose. I got it at a later point in time, but I still want to say it was only at the time around like $35, and really missed the time where you could be hauling in slabbed playing era Hall of Famers from the 50s and 60s for, that type of price point, especially someone of Koufax's caliber on the mound. Obviously, the left arm of God, and probably the greatest pitcher in the 1960s. Certainly the greatest pitcher on earth during the mid-60s at the time when this card was released and the 64 set came out. So really, really happy to have that Koufax, and just another example of, graded cards. Even graded cards don't need to be a high grade to be beautiful and to be appreciated and to have a spot in your collection. One of the things I love about grading and graded cards, especially PSA, is the uniformity that it brings to the cards. So these are all different condition, and in a binder, these might look a little bit jarring next to each other. But I think all slabbed up in PSA slabs, all four of these, whether they're a 2 or a 7, really look nice and uniform, and they make a nice display looking at them all together. So there you have it. My last two 1964 Topps graded cards, I think, that I haven't shown to date. I do have others that I've shown in the past that are not included in today's video, but had never managed to get to that Pete Rose or that Sandy Koufax before, and figured they would make for a nice installment of Slab and Gab. So thanks a lot for sticking with me through a few minutes of vintage baseball slab today on the channel. And I really appreciate your support, and I'll be back in the very near future with some more sports card content. Until then, take care.